Situated in the Caribbean, Santo Domingo is the capital of the Dominican Republic. Following the discovery of the Americas in 1492 by Christopher Columbus, the city became the first permanent European settlement in the New World, and today the colonial district of the capital is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. In the west of the city is the neighborhood of Las Palmas. Transworld Sport headed here recently as a local youth sports day was in full swing. Baseball is a national obsession in the Dominican Republic, and youngsters here love playing Betilla, a baseball-inspired game which is played with the screw tops of plastic bottles. Volleyball and basketball are also hugely popular in this country. But on our visit to Las Palmas, the sport taking centre stage was boxing. Julio Morales was the boxing event organiser.
Back around 1985, boxing was one of the most important sports here in the western part of Santo Domingo. There was a real boxing tradition here. All the neighborhoods had a club. We had the Superación Las Palmas, that was our club here, and pretty much any of those clubs had around 75 young boxers.
There were over 40 fights on the bill at the Youth Sports Day. Boys and girls as young as 8 got a first taste of what it's like to box in a ring in front of an enthusiastic crowd.
We're bringing that boxing tradition back to the west of Santo Domingo. With the help of the community and local businesses, we want this boxing revival to keep growing, and we hope to get youngsters, both boys and girls, involved with the sport.
There are plenty of boxers from the Dominican Republic for these youngsters to look up to. At the 2008 Beijing Olympics, Manuel Felix Diaz won gold in the light welterweight division, and the 29-year-old is currently undefeated in his 12 professional fights. One of the Dominican Republic's greatest ever fighters now works for his country's boxing commission. 59-year-old Leo Cruz was the WBA's super bantamweight world champion in the early 1980s.
Sometimes when I go to the supermarket, people stare at me because they recognize me. Even the taxi driver who drove me to work earlier today remembered me. He said, "Hey, you're Leo Cruz." So people do still remember me. Even the young up-and-coming boxers have heard of Leo Cruz.
Leo Cruz is the younger brother of Carlos Teo Cruz, the first Dominican to win a boxing world title back in 1968. Carlos was an outstanding fighter who tragically died in 1970, aged just 32.
When I was an amateur boxer, I took part in the Central American and Caribbean Games in Panama. 9 days before the competition, my brother was in an airplane crash and he died. I didn't want to go to compete because I was only 15 and I was incredibly upset. But my father said to me, "You have to go because now, more than ever, you have to pay tribute to our family and to your brother."
Leo had 51 bouts as a professional, winning 41 of them. He fought for the last time in 1989. None of his children or grandchildren have kept the Cruz family's boxing tradition alive, but they remain immensely proud of the brother's success in the sport. Many of the current crop of talented amateur boxers in the Dominican Republic train at the Olympic Center in Santo Domingo. The sparring sessions between members of the national squad often draw large crowds. Yet at the moment it's not the Dominican Republic's male boxers, but rather their female fighters who are making an impact on the international stage at both the amateur and professional level. Cathy Wilson is one of 3 Dominican women who currently hold a world title. She's the IBF's current super bantamweight champion.
I was 7 years old when I started boxing. My father introduced me to it. As a child, I didn't know much about boxing, but I used to be very rebellious, and I used to get into a lot of fights with other kids, especially when they didn't let me play with them. I was a real troublemaker. So my father got me started in this sport. He wanted me to stay out of trouble with the other kids in the neighborhood, and after a while, I started to like boxing. I can get a little aggressive at times, but now I can let my anger out when I fight.
Known as La Super Baby, 21-year-old Katy turned pro at the tender age of 14, and she's become something of a role model for other young girls in her homeland.
More and more girls are getting interested in boxing, and not only boxing, but also other sports too. There are better opportunities for Dominican women nowadays. There are more and more professional and amateur boxers. They want to be like me or like one of the other world champions. They look up to us and they want to follow in our footsteps.
Katy's trainer is her dad, Carlos. He's also coach of the national women's amateur team. When Katy's preparing for a fight, she likes to join in the amateur training sessions, and she often spars with the Dominican Republic's top amateur female, light heavyweight Yennabier Guillén. 26-year-old Yennabier, who's married to Richard, won gold at the 2008 Central American Championships and a silver medal at last year's Pan American Games in Guadalajara, Mexico.
Since beginning boxing, I've been quite successful. I come from a humble background, and I have to say that I would like to have something more to show for my efforts in the ring. For instance, I would like to have a house, my own house. The day I retire, I want to be able to say, thanks to my boxing career, I managed to get a number of material things.
A former softball player, Yennabier took up boxing fairly late on, at the age of 18. She comes from a sport-mad family. Her father and grandfather were both boxers, and her mum was a talented 400 metres runner.
I love boxing, and I'm not ready to quit just yet. In the future, I want to help promote women's boxing and help athletes in general here. I want to motivate others so that they have a chance to succeed.
Yennabier and Katy are rightly regarded as pioneers of women's boxing in the Dominican Republic, and they've helped pave the way for other female fighters to succeed in this land.
All the boxing coaches in the country got together, and now the National Federation has said that if there is a young girl with the right talent and character to be a Pan-American or Central American champion, or even a World or Olympic champion, then they have to be given support. We need to identify female talent and offer the necessary support, even educational support, so that she can progress in boxing.
So, boxing, and women's boxing in particular, looks set to have a promising future here in the Dominican Republic. On show at the Sports Day in Las Palmas were a number of talented female fighters who caught the eye, and who knows, one of these girls may just be a future world champion.
We're very happy with the way things are going. There've been over 40 fights today, and almost half have been female fights. The girls have proved that they are here to stay, and that they're going to play an important role in the sport in the years to come.